Welcome to Hive Mind. This is Edge with my co-host Speaker. How's it going, Speaker?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Hmm.
So today we're talking about the Great Reset. What'd you think
And
about that propaganda vid we watched in the
that's
beginning?
that's how you make a propaganda vid, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, yes.
Full budget.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about the Great Reset, and there's a lot to get into with this topic because it really is massive. I mean, it's all encompassing. But we're going to try to break it down for you guys what the Great Reset is, who is involved with it, and what it actually means to the rest of us. So, what are your general thoughts on the Great Reset, Speaker?
Well, this is the 2030 agenda in full swing. I talked about it a little bit on the Dig It podcast that came out on Friday, and this time we're just going to get into it a little bit more. But this is the elite's way of capturing the globe, their idealistic society that they're trying to perpetrate on all of us. And they're pretty open about it. They're not really hiding this, unless you're too blind to see it.
Right. It consists of these global elites who are trying to transform the world and all of humanity. It's headed, by the World Economic Forum, which we just saw their propaganda video, but it's backed by a lot of people, a lot of these global elite leaders that we see, UN, Bill Gates, Prince Charles, the Pope, even Trudeau. Yeah, the list is long. But really, what it looks like to me is just a repackaging and rebranding of an age-old beast that we know of as the New World Order, doesn't it?
Yep, this is just communism and socialism coming to you, and they're trying to disguise it as this neat package because of this pandemic. They've used this as an opportunity to put a window of opportunity to try to push their ideologies and their activism on the world in the way that they see fit. And you got to remember, these are not elected leaders
Right.
at all. These are just
Most of
people
them,
that
yeah.
most of them, these are just elites trying to push their agenda on the world. And they think you're too blind to see it. But what we've seen from a lot of these videos, and if you go to YouTube and you watch a lot of these videos, the dislike proportion is astounding.
Yeah. And just looking at the broad scope of it, the Great Reset is really heavily focused on this concept of the fourth industrial revolution, which is essentially technological despotism. It's using technology to have complete control of every facet of our lives. It's enslavement through technology.
Mhm.
And it's massive in scope. We're going to get into that scope and all of this in more detail, but just covering everything from economic activity to behavioral and social activity, environment, security and surveillance, politics, education, health, everything, and even what it means to be human. So we're going to get into all of this here. Let's look at, so they're pushing this really heavily right now. And you had mentioned this, they're using the COVID crisis as an excuse to launch this, but this has been in the works for a very long time, hasn't it?
Uh, of course, like they put this out about 5 6 months ago. This is not something that's just popped up. So they've clearly been planning this for a while, even probably before the pandemic, let's be honest. And they were just waiting for a time to usher it in, or an excuse to usher it in, really. And they found their window.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, left unaddressed, these crises together with the COVID-19 will deepen and leave the world even less sustainable. Yeah, so they're
They're,
definitely using this pandemic as a launching point. And here's Klaus Schwab, the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, which is the producer of this entire Great Reset campaign. And here he is saying the pandemic represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity. Opportunity being the operative word there, isn't it? Because they all seem to be saying that lately. To
Hmm.
reflect, reimagine, and reset our world.
So what they're really trying to push here, and what they're really trying to say is they're trying to say, look, capitalism has failed us. Look what happens when we deal with a serious global problem, right? We've had small businesses go out of work. We've had low income earners that are really struggling at the moment. Now you got to step back from this and look at why these people, and it's not because of a pandemic, because a lot of this crisis, or this COVID-19 crisis, it's not a crisis for a lot of people. For the majority of people, it's not a crisis, right? What has been a crisis to them as the way the governments have handled this, right? Because you don't see Coles shutting down, you don't see your big supermarket shutting down, you don't see Amazon, you don't see any of these massive corporate hubs closing down. What they decided to do was close down little mom and pop shops, so you're affected by it, and then they're saying, look what the pandemic's done to you.
Yes, it's not about the pandemic. It's about creating a new world order and consolidation of power. That does mean closing down the mom and pop shops. That does mean automating a lot of jobs and changing completely the landscape of the economy and jobs. And we're going to get into that too. I wanted to just kind of talk about how this is a revamp. It's just basically repackaging, rebranding, and selling to us the same old tired agenda of the New World Order. Here's Klaus Schwab in one of his several books that he's co-authored, but he's saying, if no one power can enforce order, our world will suffer from a global order deficit. So this quote right here is obviously talking about how there is a need for a global order. And this World Economic Forum is intending to fill that need. And with this new technocratic, totalitarian rule. And but it really just is a reboot of the same old thing. Look at this. Here we have, David Rockefeller back in '94 saying that all we need really is the right major crisis. Well, yeah, look, we got a pandemic. So we had the right major crisis, and the nations will accept the New World Order. We're just going to repackage it, rebrand it, and call it the Great Reset. And we'll make a nice little video, and it's going to make you feel really all warm and fuzzy inside, isn't it?
That's exactly how they do things. It's the reimagining of the world from the top down, and that's the problem. That's the problem here. It's these elites and all that making the agendas for you. Now, markets should be decided from the bottom up, not the top down. That is a huge problem that we're seeing here.
Right, absolutely. And what we need to understand is that this agenda that they have is massive in scope, just pretty much all encompassing. And this chart here really does kind of help you visualize how massive the scale is that they're talking about. But they're talking about harnessing the fourth industrial revolution. Again, that is all about using technology to control everything else, whether it is the economy, banking, education, personal interactions, human behavior, health, everything. So
Yeah, so the things that make up the fourth industrial revolution is autonomous robots, simulation, system integration, industrial internet of things, whatever that means, cybersecurity, the cloud, addictive manufacturing, augmented reality, and big data and analysis.
So the Internet of Things, that is what they're really working hard to develop, because what it is and that the 5G is heavily dependent on that. Um, it is the communication between devices to allow AI to become exponentially more intelligent. And so when you have things like the Amazon's Alexa and all of the Siri, and this is the Internet of Things, right? When all of our smart devices, all smart devices, so smart homes, smart cars, smart devices, this is the Internet of Things that communicates and creates a network for AI. And so that is definitely part of their agenda, because in this technocracy that they are developing, it is going to be the technology that's in control of all of it. You can't surveil a society completely and totally if there's some areas that are off grid. You know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
they want to expand on the Internet of Things so they can really tap into and surveil and control every single human being on the planet.
And like you were saying, they're all interlocked. They all work on a grid. I mean, so you look at autonomous robots, right? So that you can expect to be taking jobs off the the more middle class people. I mean, we're already seeing this in China. I mean, last time I went there on a business trip, which I haven't been an entrepreneur for a while now, but last time I was there, most of the factories are completely run by robots, right? So this hurts the small manufacturers, the mom and pop shops again, and it starts affecting us all that have made a life for ourselves through the capitalistic system.
Right. And then just moving through this wheel here, things that pop up. Look, so developing sustainable business models. So this is working in coordination with all businesses, okay? And we're not talking about the mom and pop shops, because we've already discussed how that is not in the equation in this new technocratic society. We're talking about consolidation of power, and that includes consolidation of, really that's the most powerful businesses probably surviving so that they can be controlled under this system. But developing sustainable business models, meaning we're going to impose all of these types of sustainable requirements on you on how you can produce, what you can produce, when you can produce it, to whom you can sell it to. And so just limiting business in that way.
And not just limiting business, but working in coordination with business and government power.
Yes.
So
And
so which means giving your data, giving your addresses, giving, say, if you Amazon's working directly with the government, I mean, all your stuff's on file.
exactly. And this also plays into this next segment, which is restoring the health of the environment. These two definitely play together. They are going to use this agenda of restoring the health of the environment to impose mandates on the business sector and how they can produce and how consumers can consume, what they consume, how much they consume.
Once
Redes-
again, once again, hitting smaller businesses with things like carbon taxes and stuff like that. Big business is not going to be affected by that, even though they're the largest polluters. It's
right.
once again going to hit the smaller ones.
The small businesses are not going to be able to, or going to struggle to survive in this kind of climate with these kind of things being imposed upon them. And then when you're looking at redesigning social contracts, skills, and jobs, this is again plays into, and I'm going to get into a quote later on by Klaus Schwab, where he talks about how citizens need to change the way they think about society as a whole, about their personal privacy, and that sort of a thing. So this social contract is really more of like, okay, you're a global citizen. You need to start thinking like a global citizen. So national sovereignty, that goes out the window. You need to start thinking about how, as a global citizen, under this technocracy, you need to sacrifice your personal privacy in order for us to hold businesses accountable for their actions. So basically, you're just part of the network, right? You're
Stripping
just a,
away your individualism.
yes, you're a cog in the wheel, and in order for the wheel to roll smoothly, you have to sacrifice your personal privacy and individuality to fit within this. This is like you have a social contract, you're obligated as part of this new society that we're creating in the Great Reset. And that also includes your job, because again, a lot of these jobs that we're talking about are going to be automated through their system, this technocracy that they're talking about, and harnessing the fourth industrial revolution. They're talking about really automating a lot of these jobs that people have created for themselves, and that are their livelihoods. So
And
we
look, a really important fact about this, and I'll just chuck it in like here while we're doing it, is they are frivolously opposed to the capitalistic society. Like they think it has failed, and in many facets. Is capitalistic society perfect? No, it isn't perfect. We've seen big businesses that have absolutely flourished while hurting little businesses, but the majority of people and this the capitalistic system is the only one that has worked to some degree. Like I said, is it perfect? No. But most of us, especially in the West, have managed to keep decent lives for ourselves, right? We can do the things we like. We can raise families. We can pay for them. And that's all because of capitalistic society. All right. So I just had to chuck that in there but it's
Yeah.
important.
And also something that you just want to look out for when you're seeing these people get up there and talk. They may not use the word Great Reset, but they are using the same packaging, the same branding. They'll use words like equality, inclusion, sustainability, responsibility, new social contract. They've all been coming out and saying this, and we'll give some examples. But yeah, so this is all encompassing, and pretty much, I don't think any sector is
Untouched.
excluded from this.
Mm. Like I said, it's such a, and they don't really go into specifics. That's the thing. It's a really technical diagram that means very little.
Yeah.
So it's on us to kind of pick it apart and see exactly what they mean by a lot of these things, because a lot of these things are completely ambiguous, right? And you're like, well, why is that there? Well, what use does that have in any sort of a facet? Right, and then you've got to look past the diagram here, and which is what we're doing slowly, and looking at their main agenda of these elites. And when you can't see something that's perfectly on the surface, there's agenda behind it.
Right. This is just the packaged product for sale to us, the consumer. See how great this is? How can you object to us caring about the ocean or human rights and justice and law? These are all good things, right? Yeah. Okay. So we're going to get into the real agenda.
That's the
And
crazy thing about it's the craziest thing about these climate activists, man. They're so worried about the planet. They're so worried about climate change, but yet they don't trust government. But they want to give government more power and money to fix the environment. What?
none
Like
of this
that's
makes
just my
sense.
mind boggles, man. Like I know a lot of people, some that are personal friends of mine that are really good cultivationists. They do really great things for the forest, especially locally and stuff like that. The last thing that they want to do is get involved with government, because they know government doesn't give a shit about it. They know they use these sort of things, one, to push their agenda, and two, to line their pockets of their friends and of the companies that they make to make these new machines.
Yes, power corrupts, and the more you consolidate the power, the more it corrupts. So logic dictates that the consolidation of power to this group of a small group of technocratic elites is going to be incredibly corrupt, and is already actually. But so this is Klaus's latest book, COVID-19, The Great Reset. He's actually written a few books, including The Fourth Industrial Revolution. That was written in 2016. shaping the fourth industrial revolution, and COVID-19, the Great Reset, which came out this year. So when you read some quotes from his books is when you really get into the mind of Klaus Schwab and understand what their true agenda is versus the propaganda that they'll release in these videos and their little pretty diagrams of how they're going to change the world. So an example of this is, let's see, where do I have it? Oh, well, here he is talking. I'll go back to that in a second. Does he look like Dr. Evil to you?
He's your typical Bond villain. He
Yes.
really is. And once you hear him talk, if you don't feel like some sort of eeriness, then there's something wrong with you, I tell you.
Yeah,
Because you can, I don't know, it's just an eerie feeling when these people talk. Because well, people like us anyway know their agenda.
yeah, I'll just go ahead and play this right here. Listen to him.
COVID-19 crisis has shown us that our old systems are not fit anymore for the 21st century. It has laid bare the fundamental lack of social cohesion, fairness, inclusion, and equality. In short, we need a great reset.
Wow. Complete with the German accent and
I know, right?
everything.
It's just a reimagining of Hitler right there. It's terrible.
Yeah, yeah. So who's involved in this? I mean, they openly advertise this conspiracy. This is not a, a secret or something that just tinfoil hat crazy conspiracy theorists talk about. They are advertising this.
And what one thing I've noticed though, because of course they've been saying, the new conspiracy, the Great Reset, blah blah blah. But what I have noticed, especially going through and trying to find articles and videos on this, is there's a lot of people that are not even in our sector of work, are not even in any sort of journalism or content creating. I mean, you've got economic people talking about it. Like, wait a second, this is ridiculous, right? You've got people from all different walks of life with quite large followings now that are also making videos on this. They're quite hard to find because if you type in the Great Reset on YouTube, you only find, of course, the pumped up ones, which is all from the Economic Forum and stuff like that. But they're there.
Yeah.
And it's definitely interesting to see some of the people waking up towards it that are definitely that are not even in our sector of work.
Right, it is. It's a good thing. So who is behind it? Who's involved in it? And there's practically every global elite is involved in this conspiracy. And, you could look at, say, Guterres here, who's the head of the UN. I'll play a little bit from him.
Warmest greetings and best wishes on the launch of the Great Reset. The COVID-19 pandemic is causing enormous human suffering and economic hardship. A microscopic virus has closed down entire countries and economies. In doing so, it has exposed the fragility that characterizes much of our world. But this fragility is not confined to health systems. Runaway climate change, unsustainable levels of inequality, and the lawlessness of cyberspace are all warning signs that we must heed.
So there you have it. And they keep saying, of course, COVID-19 is this opportunity to reshape things the way we want it. Here's Bill Gates. He's very active with the World Economic Forum as well, especially when it comes to shaping the future of our health through vaccines and our educational system for our children. So indoctrinating them, basically. But also another key player is Prince Charles. Look at him. There he is with Klaus. Wow. What's going on there?
Alcoholism.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's generally what happens to the face when your liver starts giving out. The royal family really big at pushing this. Actually, they've pushed their own videos of the Great Reset as well on their YouTube channel.
Yes. And, one speech that Prince Charles gave recently, it wasn't specifically on the Great Reset, though he uses the same terminology. It is a part of the same agenda. And I want to play it because it's important. And it's talking about this agenda using the opportunity of the COVID pandemic to reshape the world and going full steam ahead, making it like a military style campaign. I think this is important to listen to.
Without swift and immediate action, at an unprecedented pace and scale, we will miss the window of opportunity to reset for a green-blue recovery and a more sustainable and inclusive future. In other words, the global pandemic is a wake-up call we simply cannot ignore. Having been at this now for well over 40 years, I have long observed that people tend not to act until there is a real crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, that crisis has been with us for far too many years, decried, denigrated, and denied. It is now rapidly becoming a comprehensive catastrophe that will dwarf the impact of the coronavirus pandemic. At this late stage, I can see no other way forward but to call for a Marshall-like plan for nature, people, and planet. With the planetary emergency so critical, with the permafrost melting in Siberia, for instance, producing dire effects on global warming, and with the Pantanal in Brazil being consumed by unprecedented numbers of fires, we can no longer go on like this, as if there was no tomorrow and no ultimate reckoning for our abuse of nature. So, what do we do? Without doubt, we must now put ourselves on a warlike footing, approaching our action from the perspective of a military-style campaign. That way, working together, we can combat this most grave and urgent challenge.
So there you have it. They want to do a military-style campaign to usher in this new world order under the guise of the Great Reset.
And climate change, they use that as a cop-out to push their own agendas. I mean, I'm all for helping the planet. Let's help the planet. I mean, like we have destroyed it in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of ways you can do it. And I've like I said before, I've got a lot of friends that are working really hard in environmentalism and stuff like that. But what you got to realize is this climate change agenda is not for the planet. It's not for you. It's for them. As an excuse, just like they use LGBT and these social issues to push their own agendas. It's got nothing to do with fixing the planet. It's got to do with pushing their agendas and enriching their friends through new corporations and new mandates that with money that goes straight back to the government, not to you.
It's a consolidation of power and control to this technocratic elite that they plan to usher in. And if you can impose sanctions on people based off of the need to save the environment, just like you can impose laws and requirements and mandates on people in order to combat a pandemic, it's all under the guise of helping people or helping the planet, but really the priority is to consolidate power and have control, ultimate control of all facets.
Micromanage you, your life, and the planet.
Yes, in every way. So I'm going to play this video here in a sec, but I want to talk about one other person who is very much a part of this agenda, and that is the Pope. So the Pope came out, it was last month or so, and put out his latest encyclical called Fratelli Tutti. And he talked about the same agendas he's talked about, very much in line with the UN, on the need to combat climate change, the need for open borders. But he also added to that, and this part was important, he talked about how capitalism, free market capitalism, had failed us. and how we need a new economic world order. And this new economic agenda needs to be one where we reject personal property. That's not a right. It's really, you know, we need to just live without this idea, this concept of owning things. So that's very
You,
much,
you
go ahead.
can't own. You can't own things.
No, I'm
They can
gonna
own things,
look at the
but you can't
Vatican.
own things, right? This is a man that runs his own country in the middle of a country, right? Surrounded by walls,
Filled with gold.
right?
Filled with
with
gold and riches and
sits on gold thrones and speaks from gold buggles.
yep.
Mhm.
But you can't own anything, and this is in line with what the World Economic Forum put out. I believe they put this video out in 2016, right after Trump was elected. They have since taken it down. Wonder why? So I'm just going to play a little bit of this.
Sometimes you notice they go a little bit far and then they have to backtrack and take it down because it's not ready to push that propaganda yet. If you notice, they do it with a lot of things.
I'm not going to play the full vid. I'm going to play just the first few seconds of it because that's really where we want to focus. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy.
Sorry, that just made me laugh. You go back to that clip. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. Oh my god.
There he is. He's so happy.
You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. This is the most ridiculous shit you've ever heard in your life.
They're trying to sell it. They're working really hard to sell that. And you can tell, I mean, that they know that this is not something that people want to accept because they took it down. They just took it down recently. And yeah, so what do you think about this idea of owning nothing and you'll be happy?
I don't know what to say. It's such a joke for me, man, because things, little things that we have that we've worked hard for, and once again, this is the benefit of capitalism. Some people work their asses off to buy little things for themselves, right? The majority of the planet is not incredibly wealthy. A lot of us are middle class, especially in the West. And when we work hard for something and we buy ourselves something, whether it be, I don't know, a pool table, a bike, whatever it is, a new gun, I don't know, or whatever it is that makes you happy, right? You work hard for it, and people deserve, when they work hard for things, to own things. Now, looking at this is that, you own nothing. They'll own everything,
yes,
and they'll disseminate to you what you can have, and that's fine because you won't need to work hard. You won't need to do all these things. Well, in theory, that's what they're trying to paint. You won't need to work hard. You'll all get the same amount. This is socialism.
It is. It is. It is. Or communism, and
same brush.
Right. Yep, it is, and this idea that you'll be so happy when you're just renting or borrowing the technocratic elites stuff, going to your technocratic overlords and begging for your bits. It's it's insane. It's insane that they could think that people would buy this, but. So here's Trudeau. He's also part of this, and he got slammed this week for his statements about the Great Reset. And
do you have the dislikes on the video? Can you show that?
Let me see.
They're like, everyone's getting slammed for this, man. It's not. There you go.
Yeah, that's a ratio.
They're all like that, though. They're all like from different sites that I've seen. People are not buying this shit, man.
Yeah, I'm going to play just a little bit of this because it's, 6 minutes long. I'm not going to play the whole thing. But he is echoing the same thing. We know Trudeau's a puppet. We know he does exactly what the global elites tell him to do. And this is no exception to it. So he once again uses this word opportunity, that we're going to use this pandemic as an opportunity.
strong, coordinated response across the world and across sectors is essential. This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset. This is our chance to accelerate our pre-pandemic efforts to reimagine economic systems that actually address global challenges like extreme poverty, inequality, and climate change.
So, yep, he just does his overlord's bidding, doesn't he?
Such a puppet.
Yes.
And see, that's another thing. The last election, he got voted in. I mean, were they using Dominion software too?
Well, it is a Canadian company, so I would imagine.
Exactly. Right? So it's once you start taking a broader picture and all of this, you're like, are these people actually really getting elected? Like, we know a lot of people follow them, right? There's a lot of people, completely useful idiots out there that do follow them. That's no joke. But I'd like to believe that a lot more of the world is awake than what they're showing you, or what things are telling you.
Well, this would be evidence of that.
That would be a good one, yes.
Yeah, so let's talk about the fourth industrial revolution. So what is the fourth industrial revolution? Well, it's basically this new economic system that touches every aspect of our lives and places technology in complete control. It's essentially technological totalitarianism. And here I have a quote from Klaus Schwab's book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution. He says, establishing trust in the data and algorithms used to make decisions will be vital. Citizen concerns over privacy and establishing accountability in business and legal structures will require adjustments in thinking. So basically, you're going to have to forego this whole idea of privacy because we're going to have mass surveillance on everything. And it's going to be the technology that we need to put our trust and faith in. Because that is going to be our overlord.
And where have we seen government start pushing mandates like this after the last crisis? Let's see if you can have a guess when a lot of people's personal privacy started getting affected. Let's see if you can guess, Edge. What was the last crisis where that started moving towards more government surveillance?
Well, right after 9/11 is when we
nailed it.
Yes. There were the Freedom Act, or what is it called? Shoot. Now, you caught me off guard. I can't remember the name of the act, but there was some legislation passed immediately after 9/11 that allowed us to conduct surveillance on terrorists. And it did really impose a lot on American citizens and foregoing our freedoms and our privacies, and that has also been abused so much since then. Now we see how much has been coming out lately with just this 2020 election. And what they were using with Hammer and Scorecard, basically they were using the surveillance system to spy on terrorists and turning it on American citizens. So really, I do think 9/11 was the turning point where we started to chip away at the privacy and the rights of private citizens, right?
I just found this good website on the Fourth Industrial Revolution. I'll send it to you. You don't need to bring it up because I know your computer's struggling at the moment. But it points out some really good diagrams.
Okay.
But yeah.
So here's the World Economic Forum's website where they're talking about the Fourth Industrial Revolution and what it means. And I'll just read the first paragraph of it because it tells you, they don't hide this stuff. It just says, we stand on the brink of a technological revolution that will fundamentally alter the way we live, work, and relate to one another. In its scale, scope, and complexity, the transformation will be unlike anything humankind has experienced before. We do not yet know just how it will unfold, but one thing is clear: the response to it must be integrated and comprehensive, involving all stakeholders. They left that word stakeholders of the global polity, from the public and private sectors to academia and society. So they're not hiding it. They're telling you exactly how all-encompassing this is, how fundamentally altering this is to every aspect of our life, from living, working, and relating to one another. So we need to be aware of this. We need to do our own research and take this stuff seriously, because they're putting it all out there. This is not some crazy conspiracy theory, is it?
No, it's so far. I mean, they're putting it in your face, and we've seen a lot of people. In Australia, for example, Pauline Hanson, who is the leader of the One Nation Party, she's popular in some facets, not a lot, but she's the only one that was really outspoken about it in Parliament the other day. And you've got all these leftist greenies that completely, just shut her down and tried to mock her. Exactly with these conspiracy theories. Look, it's this conspiracy Illuminati shit, and they're just trying to mock her. And only a couple of people in the chamber voted against this stuff. So, I mean, there is a few people fighting for it, but you've got these idealistic social activists. They're not really government officials. They're not really journalists. They're activists, and they're pushing their own ideology and agenda, and they're mocking people for simply speaking the truth about what's going on.
Right. So in other words, this right here is describing the technocratic New World Order that will have complete control of every aspect of our lives, from the global economy. And we're going to break this down and talk about these things too: mass surveillance, environment, security, politics, health, education. Let's talk about the economy and how they're planning on transforming the economy.
Well, that picture's got nothing to do with it. I don't know what they're using that for.
Because it's propaganda. Isn't it beautiful? See, we're not going to be taking away all of your mom and pop shops. We're not consolidating all of the power. We're not going to give all of these businesses, these huge corporations who are going to comply with our standards, all of the benefits. We're not going to completely transform the banking system. Look, pretty picture. Right? Yeah, so... but they aren't actually talking about automating the majority of jobs and transforming the banking system and completely altering the landscape, the financial landscape. And that could be devastating, I can imagine. And
it will be devastating, and it will be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the monitoring our behaviors and social interactions, I want to talk about that because this Freedom House put out a good report on all of the ways that this COVID-19 crisis has been really used to lay a dangerous foundation for a surveillance state. And I'm just going to read this off because I thought it was well encapsulated. That it says, brick by brick, governments and companies responding to the public health crisis are laying a foundation for tomorrow's surveillance state. Opaque smartphones collect biometric and geolocation data in an effort to automate contact tracing, enforce quarantines, and determine individuals' health status. State agencies are gaining access to larger swaths of user data from service providers in a process that lacks oversight and safeguards against abuse. Police and private companies are accelerating the rollout of advanced technologies to monitor citizens in public, including facial recognition, thermal scanning, and predictive tools. So you can see where this is going. Look, we've been living this for all of 2020. We've seen this play out. This is not some, sci-fi movie that's way off 20, 30, 50, 100 years from now. This is happening now, and they're rolling it out real fast.
This is the building blocks of every dystopian future movie you've ever seen. This is the start of it.
Right, and they're using COVID-19 to initiate it. Look, if you're okay with and going to comply with wearing a mask, then maybe you're okay with having an app on your phone that collects all your biometric data, your geolocations. They can track that and do contact tracing. And if you're okay with that, then maybe you're okay with wearing a wristband that has all of your medical information on it. It has proof that you've taken the COVID vaccine, and monitors your biometrics, your heart rate, your temperature, so that when you go places, people can just scan that and make sure that you're not infected and that you're all up to date on your vaccines, right? And if you're okay with that, then maybe you're okay with taking a chip that does all the same things, and in time, maybe it can even start tracking your thoughts, your emotions, and even to the point where you can start controlling those and manipulating those. It's
and to a point where maybe it can inject you with stuff, and there's no limit to where these processes can go.
People need to start recognizing where this is going, that this public health quote unquote crisis is an opportunity for them to usher in a surveillance state. And this is happening now. You can see the steps that are being made now to surveil us. So then we can talk about the environment, which is another key ambition of theirs, climate ambition initiatives, which is really, again, as we've mentioned, it's really just talking about how they're going to use climate change, just like they're using the COVID crisis, they're going to use the climate crisis to control everything on the globe. So they're going to use COVID crisis to control the humans, climate crisis to control the world. And with that, the economy, all production and consumption basically. And they're going to
comes really big with that. Agriculture is a pinnacle of our world that keeps most of us sustained, and if they can control the agriculture, they can control the people.
Right. And then also they're going to talk about, controlling security, and this goes back again to surveillance, and really using these tactics to surveil us as they're going to use security as an excuse for the mass surveillance. Also, they are going to have control over health, and when we talk about, say, for example, Bill Gates, whose main initiatives have been the vaccines and also education as well. But when you talk about how they want to control the health aspect of our lives, again, it's surveillance, monitoring our biometrics, and even blurring the lines of what it means to be human with implantable devices, upgrades. There's a video. Where is it?
Transhumanism.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, here it is. So here's Klaus Schwab, Dr. Evil. He was talking about how the Great Reset will lead to a fusion of our physical, digital, and biological identities. This is what they're trying to move towards, is this transhumanist agenda where we are merging with technology. So I'm just going to play this for you.
It's at the end, what the fourth industrial revolution will lead to is a fusion of our physical, our digital, and our biological identities.
I'm not going to play that whole thing because the audio is terrible, but you get the idea. So Klaus Schwab has talked extensively in his books on the Fourth Industrial Revolution about this transhumanist agenda, merging with technology, using that to control us and to monitor us.
And that's why it's really funny when you hear people that go, conspiracy theory this, conspiracy theory that. We're not really going out on a huge limb here to dig up these information. They're telling you. They're telling you straight to your face. It's not like we've got to dig very far to find out their agenda here. They're telling you. It's on the surface.
Right. And another key area that they're looking at controlling is the education. And I think that pretty much everybody out there, their kids have been affected with this whole COVID thing over the course of 2020, and their education has been affected. Whether it's they're working from, or they're going to school from home, remotely online, or the changes that the schools are making to comply with these COVID-19 standards. But this is all prepping us for them to really reshape the education system. And I do think a lot of that is, is basically that continuing this trend of kids going to school online. And if it's a technocracy, and then they would want to have complete and total control of the education that the kids are having. And what better way to do that if the kids are all going to school online? So I do think that's a part of that. And here's some evidence of that.
They've had control of the education system for a while now. It's not lie about that.
That's true, but part of this agenda is revamping the education system, and one example of that would be Bill Gates, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, working with Cuomo in New York City to reimagine the educational system there. And that is part of this World Economic Forum agenda and reshaping the educational system in a post-COVID-19 world, meaning like we're not going back to the way things were. Everybody thinks we're going to go back, that once you get the vaccine, you're going to be fine and everything's going to go back to normal. No, these people want to fundamentally transform the world and
I liked it the way it was. I liked it the way it was. Most people do liked it the way it was, right? Most people were doing fine, but I mean there was always a struggle. I mean, we all deal with struggle. That's fine. The world is never going to be perfect for anyone or everyone. There's always going to be problems. It is never going to be a utopia, and I think people need to really realize that. We got to live within our means, and life is a struggle from time to time. But that's just humanity.
Yes, and so this, to me, and from my perspective, this is the final war for the future of mankind as we know it, is it not?
It's shaping up to be.
Yeah, because if they're talking about fundamentally altering humans, through technology, then I don't see how once that is reached, there's ever really going back. You can't really go back from that. I can't imagine. Can you?
No. Oh no. It's like most things. Like, so for an example, there's a service station that I go down to probably every night to get either a coffee or something, or what I do, and I talk to the people there quite a lot. And since COVID happened, they've lost certain hours, so it's no longer 24 hours now. They've lost certain, so like they'll close for like 6 hours or something like that, depending on the time limit. And I was talking to the manager there, and she's like, every time something like this happen, and we've either lost hours or we've lost things like that, we've never got them back. So that's just a smaller example of you'll never get things back the way they were once they've changed to a full degree.
Yes, but I'm even talking about altering humans to the point where merging with technology, which is what they're moving towards and what their agenda is. And so once humans merge with technology, you really have to start asking yourself, and we've talked about the transhumanist agenda before, but this is it. The Great Reset is part of that. And so once that happens, for those who do decide to do that, I can't imagine there's a way to go back. So to me, this is the ultimate final battle for the future of what it really means to be human, of our kind, the regular human beings, that don't have chips, that haven't merged with AI, that don't get upgrades, because that's coming, and that's part of this Great Reset. So
and then they'll push on the guilt when you get to that look, these people are like cavemen to kind of force you to do it. Oh, I don't want to be a caveman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. There is going to be a new class warfare, basically, between the haves and the have-nots of those who do choose to get upgrades, merged with technology, and those who don't, because the differences are going to be stark. They're going to be stark, and so that is going to create a whole new problem for the future. But I want to.
Society. We can get into that later, though. It's
Yeah,
a whole new topic.
I want to ask you though, so what do we do about it? And I have some answers, but I want to hear your thoughts.
I want to hear yours first. Send them.
All right, so I think the first thing is becoming aware of it. I know that seems simple. We just spent about an hour doing that, but there are so many. If you talk to somebody, you know, a friend or a family member, they probably aren't even aware of this. So it's not a crazy conspiracy theory. You can go on their website. They'll tell you everything. You can show them this video. But we really need to start having this conversation with our friends and family members and our loved ones, and educating ourselves about it, about what they're really trying to do here, because it's serious. And then the next thing I think is that we can't just get into this mindset that when Trump has a second term, that this agenda is going to go away, and everything goes back to normal. I don't think that's the case. And I don't want people to become complacent about this agenda, because these people are going to go forward with it regardless of who comes into office. And so we need to be vigilant about it, because they're not going to just pack up and give up when Trump takes a second term.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think education's a big part of it. Teaching, learning, sharing information, and then speaking up about it, especially to your local government and your local, because these people will pass things that even you got to be aware of local politics, especially at the moment.
Yeah, we need to be vigilant about this, not become complacent about it, keep our eyes on it. And then the last thing I think is that we really need to start asking ourselves some tough questions. Like, it's time to make a choice. Are you going to comply? Will you opt out? Because it's going to start infringing on our personal lives. When you're talking about transforming the economy and a lot of these small businesses closing down and automating a lot of jobs, what are you going to do about that? If you're talking about, okay, today you're wearing a mask, tomorrow you're wearing a wristband that monitors and surveils your biometrics. The next day you're getting the vaccine, and you're having to produce that vaccine to, in order to be able to travel, in order to be able to attend certain things. Like, for example, Ticketmaster is now going to start requiring proof that you've taken a vaccine, or that you know, some information on your medical records in order to be able to attend their concerts. So
I'm not going to a concert.
exactly. So these are the questions you're going to have to ask yourself, because I think that in the very near future, we're going to have to start, if we do choose to opt out, which is my choice, I choose to opt out of all of this, then I'm going to have to sacrifice a lot of conveniences and luxuries in order to have my freedoms. Mm-hmm. And, you know, if you think about it, if it gets to the point where they're fundamentally transforming the economy and the banking system to the point where, say, you have to use biometrics or a chip to access your banking in order to buy things, then an entirely different set of economic structures need to be put in place for those of us who opt out, like bartering and trading.
And growing your own vegetables. Everyone should learn how to do that.
Exactly. We need to start thinking in this mindset. Look, if I choose to opt out of this new world order that they're trying to impose, what does that actually mean for me and my family? And for the community that I live in? Maybe I don't live in a community where this would work. Maybe I need to live somewhere where this could be a possibility, where I could sustain myself. I wouldn't have to rely on this system, or I could live in a community of like-minded people who do not want to participate in this New World Order agenda, who will work together. You know, say you're growing food, the other guy's got chickens, the other guy can fix things for the people in the community. You know what I'm saying? So we need to start thinking in those terms and asking ourselves, I think, those serious questions of if this great reset happens in the very near future in our lifetimes, what are we going to do about it? So
we'll leave you with that.
Yes, serious talk for a serious time, but it's important. So I hope you all got something out of this. Please be sure to share this podcast with people who you think could benefit from this information. And we'll see you back next time, right here on HiveMind.